I'm Kayla.
I'm Alyssa.
And this is the Christie Club.
Man, I love the summer weather. How do you usually spend your summers, Kayla?
For me, summer is the only time I have free time, so it's my time to read.
Yeah.
Last summer, 13 Agatha Christie books.
Dang!
It was impressive.
Yeah.
This summer, so far, only 2 and 5 short stories.
Man.
But I'm on my way. What
Yeah.
about you? What does summer remind you of?
I always have these nice memories of just like, being on my dad's boat, going tubing or something. It's pretty relaxing. I mean, sometimes I get seasickness. That's not fun.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I'm pretty sure Poirot is known for his seasickness and his weakness on boats. Yeah, I've definitely never witnessed a murder on a boat, thank goodness. But I'm sure Poirot has had some very interesting experiences.
Yeah, like this short story we just read.
Oh, yeah!
Problem at Sea by Agatha Christie. So, Problem at Sea was first published in 1936, so still pretty early in Christie's career. I'll start with the cast.
Go ahead, yeah.
We have... Okay, it says Colonel, right?
Yes.
But in my head, every single time, it was not Colonel, it was Colonial.
I always say Colonel, because, okay, I used to watch this TV show, Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah.
It was on at like 10 p.m., which was not a good time for child Alyssa. I needed to get to sleep at that hour, but whatever. And there was this French character, and he always said, Colonel! So every time I see... Colonel, it's Colonel.
And I had to look up, like, how to pronounce it. And I was like, this isn't right. And then I started writing Colonial instead of being, like, Colonel. And then I was like, it is pronounced Colonial. So anyways, if I mess that up, I'm going to.
Okay.
It's
okay.
Colonel. Mm-hmm. So we have Colonel Clapperton.
Mm-hmm.
These names, so great, okay?
Yes.
He is a colonel. He was at...
he was in a war. Sort of.
Anyways, then there's his wife, Miss Clapperton, who was...
Mrs.
Oh, Mrs. Yes,
Who
Mrs.
is very rich.
Why is Mrs. spelled with an R? Not important.
Because it's Miss, but she's attached to her Mister. So
That's...
Mm-hmm.
That's so bad. I do not like that.
Me neither.
Ew.
And all of Mister stays Mister his whole life.
It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't change. That is so annoying.
Patriarchy, I swear.
Yeah. Okay, anyways. There's Mrs. Clapperton, his wife. Then there is Miss Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
Wait. Yeah, Miss Henderson. Ooh,
And there is
I did something wrong here.
Suggested love affair between her and Mr. or Colonel Clapperton.
I have stuff to say on Miss Henderson. But we have Miss Henderson. There's a General Forbes on the ship, who's the general of the ship. There's a Pamela Cregan and Kitty Mooney. These names. Kitty Mooney.
I thought they were...
Sorry.
I thought they were twins for some reason. I didn't realize that they weren't related.
No, not related. But they're just tiny. They're
age.
young children.
They're not children. They're young ladies.
Young ladies.
Very energetic and playful.
Yeah.
And also kind of in love. Not exactly in love.
Everybody's in love with Colonel Clapperton.
Except for Journal Forbes. He kind of
I don't know. If you know, yeah.
Yeah.
But, so, our victim is Miss Clapperton. She has died.
She's stabbed through the heart with a knife.
Wait, really?
Yes! Did you not read that?
I don't know.
She's stabbed through the heart in her bed. And should we save... No,
reveal the murderer.
Alright, ready? Colonel Clapperton!
It was her husband!
Dun dun dun! Totally not in it for the money. No.
Oh yeah, because she's rich and he is not.
He is. Well, he wants to be the owner all of his possessions.
Yeah, and, I mean...
He doesn't want to be reliant upon his wife.
Miss Clapperton is apparently a hard person to be married to.
Mm-hmm. So says General Forbes.
Okay, this is the first short story that I guessed it.
Yes.
I knew it the whole time, okay? I knew it from the first sentence where they said, you know what they said? Before the war, he was on the musical stage.
Oh!
Do you see that word?
Staged! Yes!
It said the word stage, and I go, I know who it is.
Dang!
Page 1.
That was early. It took me a while. I waited until Poirot noted his relations, like his attitude toward his wife, his reaction when his wife.
Oh yeah, he was
him,
like,
that's my car. And he's all like, but it didn't.
Part of
seem
me
to
was like,
bother
go
him.
her.
Why? Yeah, but it's like it didn't bother him at all. It's either because he's so used to it, or
that was for me.
Planning to murder her.
At that point, I knew it was him, but I suspected as soon as they said the word stage. Okay, because the same thing.
Yes.
If there's a theater, if there's a stage, okay, he must be an actor, which means he was acting the whole time.
Dang.
He murdered.
Dang,
So
this is taking away the mystery now. I'm just gonna, anytime I see stage...
I know, I feel like I've ruined so many books for myself by figuring this out.
Thank you for sharing, Kayla. Yes.
So...
I found that.
In my clues, it says, Colonel Clapperton was on stage. And I'm so proud of... Okay, but it was quite predictable in that I feel like we both figured it out. Now, I didn't figure out exactly how, but I was on to him.
It was pretty obvious that, I suspected that maybe there could have been another person in.
That's what I thought too, because they talked about her having a shrill voice, and I was like, that's suspicious. So I was on to him.
Yes, and the fact that you don't see her at that time, it's like if you don't see her, that might not be her.
Exactly.
I already know that from Murder on the Orient Express, for example. And he had the perfect alibi though, and that was another thing.
Oh my god! But that was another one of my clues. If you have a perfect alibi, you did the murder because you would give yourself that perfect alibi. And I know there's another book where like the time of death was slightly off because of like alibis and stuff like that. And I was like, bet she got murdered before.
Yeah.
And I was right. So, I mean, it was, I guess, satisfying to know it, but also kind of not, because I didn't get it wasn't as, no way! There wasn't,
it was a little bit anticlimactic at the end.
So, I think, it's how, you have to walk a line of, like, not giving it away who the murderer is, but making it feel good, and, like that, making it feel... When you reveal it, it sounds right.
Yes, making it seem plausible.
And so this one was a little too on the side of...
Twisty. It was still, a little...
which was a little too bad.
Except Miss Henderson, I was thinking maybe she...
Okay, maybe her, me too.
I was like, maybe they both kind of pulled it off because she wants to be with him and he wants the money, so maybe she could have been in the room pretending to be the lady. But then you see her a little while later, so I was like, I guess not. I was surprised in how in Poirot's accent abilities because I never seen him pull off a different accent. I was like, that's interesting. And then he did the ventriloquist thing, and at first I thought he was actually doing ventriloquism, and I was like, Poirot, what? Like, don't go Sherlock Holmes on us, because Holmes is all about being the actor. In his like investigations. But I thought this was really cute. Theatrical.
It was good. I think the ventriloquist trick worked well.
Yeah.
It was a little boring guessing the murderer, but I thought this one was really fun because Poirot was just really funny in this one.
Yeah, and
there was a lot of parts
trailing along.
There's a lot of parts I laughed.
There was this line. He drew himself back into the smoking room with the same exaggerated care with which a tortoise withdraws itself into a shell. And actually, I was picturing David Suchet in the episode. I was like, that's totally him. Like that was probably one of his like 99 notes or whatever, to like refresh himself when he needs to get into character. I was like, that's just 100% Suchet's portrayal of Poirot. It's uncanny. It's perfect.
There is a lot with the newer movies that Poirot is just not Poirot enough.
Yeah, with was Kenneth Branagh?
Yeah, or something. Anyways, bringing it back. I loved it when the general just kept saying, fact!
Yes! It actually reminded me of my sister, because she used to say that a lot. She'd be like, fact! Blah, 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 blah.
And it reminded me of me, because I'll go, question! And then I say question.
Yes, that is true. I really liked Miss Henderson's moment, though, when, well, first, just how it begins. I like that it begins in the middle of the conversation.
And I love that. Yeah, you go ahead.
What's it called? Media in res? No. Something en res. It's like, that's just the term for, like, how you start a story already in motion. Like, you're already, like, the story's already happening. So you're dropped right in the middle of this conversation.
I did not know that.
Yes. So that was really fun and enjoyable. Yes. And I like how, Miss Henderson was able to kind of, we got to, like, watch how she's just kind of playing with the general and just kind of getting these reactions out of him. And then I love her line, what an old gossip. And they say we are the scandal-loving sex.
I was going to bring up her and, like, Agatha Christie's feminism. Mm-hmm. Because, like, when you read just the beginning, you're like, go Miss Henderson. You know, she's playing the general. In a lot of Agatha Christie's books, the women are just smarter. Mm-hmm. And I love that.
Yeah, they're clever and they're just kind of, subverting some stereotypes.
Yeah.
There was one line that she said, and I was like, lady, no.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, the racist line?
Yep. I was going to bring that up, and I was like, that is not
she did it. She was the murderer.
Yep.
That was not okay.
As soon as I read that, it was very disturbing.
Yeah.
And so that is something about reading some of these books, where you're like, go them for some parts, and then there's just something that's...
And she just, like, automatically assumes it must have been one of the vendors or whatever who like, came on the ship. She couldn't be the passengers, you know. It's kind of, like, the last thing on her mind that could have possibly have been, like, her lover, right? Yeah. And I guess that's kind of where Agatha can kind of get you, right? And how she can kind of slip in certain themes, which is, again, what was discussed in the video I saw about And Then There Were None. Yeah. And how the British just kind of assumed... like, oh, we're upright, moral British citizens. Like, we're above that, you know. We're untouchable.
I did like kind of, I don't know if it's dark humor, but where there's the one part where the Miss Clapperton says something. Is like, what are you if you're not alive? And Poirot just goes, dead.
She's like, she didn't like that very much. Yeah.
I thought that was really funny. And then also all the lines about taking a hatchet to this woman.
Yeah.
I was like, that is just hilarious. A little disturbing, a little out there.
They were just very straightforward with
Everyone was just like, yeah, she's the kind of woman you would just...
kind of murder, you know?
But why with the hatchet? I don't know.
Yeah, they need to bury the hatchet, man.
Yeah.
We got some pretty good lines out of this, though. I would agree with that. Especially when they're playing bridge and Mr. Clapperton is invited to go outside with the two teenagers. Yeah. And Mrs. Clapperton, his wife, says like, oh, but what if you catch cold or something? Mm-hmm. And the girls are like, oh, don't worry, we're hot stuff. That line was awesome. I loved that. That was so cute.
They did it. There was also another mention of Sherlock Holmes again, and he says like, I have my methods, Watson.
Yes.
And I was like, huh.
That cracked me up as well.
Yeah. I thought Poirot was also just very Poirot in it. In the ending, where he's like, I may be mad, but there's madness in my method or something. Yeah. Oh, Poirot comically self-important is what is...
I see.
And I found that funny.
Yes.
Oh, and then the last line, I thought was perfect, where Poirot just says, I do not approve of murder.
Yes. Yes, it kind of brought the tone, I don't know, a little bit, it just made it a little bit more somber. It was like, she's like, it was a trick, a cruel trick, and he's like, I do not approve of murder. Like, either way.
I found it more funny.
Really?
But, like, I was in a funny mood this whole thing. Like, I was like, taking a hatchet to the wall. So, even that line, I just saw, it was comical in my head. It was like, well, I do not approve of murder.
I see. That would be a way more enjoyable read. Yes, I agree.
I just kind of think it's funny, what kind of, we read it in different ways.
Yeah, we hear Poirot's voice take on different tones.
Yeah.
I agree, though. I love that he was his gallant gentleman self, especially in the beginning. And it just seems like someone that you could totally just have a great conversation with. And I love that in this one, he again kind of outwits people's expectations a little bit, because in the beginning, one of the ways he gets Miss Henderson to spill some beans is by saying, like, I was just thinking about like, English. Like, wouldn't you say he can't play instead of he doesn't play? You know? And then later, he's all like, I'm switching into some Cockney accent right now. And I was like, dang.
I have some fun words that I enjoyed.
Yes.
One is wangled.
Wangled? Where was that?
It was actually a very inconspicuous place. But I was like, that word should be used more.
I did not see that anywhere. You must show it to me.
It was like, he wangled something, she wang... It was at the beginning.
Oh, it was probably... I got some funny words like tiffin, which just means like lunch or a light meal.
I did not see that.
Ruction, which is a disturbance or a
I got
quarrel.
ructions. I like the word imbecility, because I like the word imbecile. Yeah. But when you say imbecility, it makes it just so much more fancy.
Yes, it does.
There was pifling. I think that's what it is. No, pilfering. I can't read my own handwriting. Pilfering, which I thought was fun.
Mendacious, which means lying or not telling the truth. And it was interesting because it said mendacious candor. And I was like, well, that's an oxymoron. Okay. That, or I don't understand the definition of candor.
Sometimes I feel like I just want to write down every single word. I'm like, why don't people use just...
Dude, I have so many lists of vocab words from, like, books and stuff. Like, sometimes I'd write it while I'm reading a book. Like, when I was doing Frankenstein for AP Lit. And then, like, in here I have, or Pride and Prejudice, or right now, House of Mirth. Because that one's, like, every several pages, or, like, 3 or 4 words I don't know.
Yeah.
So I have so many lists. But the thing is, when am I going to, like, refer back to those lists?
No.
Maybe it's just the act of just
writing it down,
writing it. But
see, I'm not a big vocab person, but when you're reading a book and some of these fun words come up that I know what they mean, but people don't really use as much anymore, I think they're so fun.
Yeah.
And so great, and it makes me appreciate English more.
Yes.
Because I am not an English appreciator, but Agatha Christie helps.
Yeah. Especially when she uses it in such fun ways.
Yes, she does.
Alright, I have one last note that became a rant.
Ooh, let's go for it.
Oh, you ready? Alright.
Yes.
So, in the beginning, especially with character description, there were a lot of notes about exercise, figure, and, like, dieting, and age. And
yeah, there was.
A lot. And, they all relate to age and the preservation of supposed beauty or physical beauty of the main characters. And let's see... Yeah, so I was like, this sort of appreciation of the efforts invested to maintain a fit, youthful look tends to pop up quite a bit in Agatha Christie's works.
It does.
And I formed this supposition that Agatha was rather reminiscent of her younger days, and maybe that kind of soured her attitude towards the younger generations later, when she's kind of more critical of, like, their fashion, and how they're just so, like, confident in their bodies. So... let's see.
Well, there was the difference between Miss Clapperton and Miss Henderson, who are both older women, but Miss Henderson is, like, she looks younger than she is, but she's, like,
she doesn't
comfortable in her oldness, and she's got gray hair and stuff. And then you have Miss Clapperton, who has like a made-up face and something, and he says from far away she looks young, but up close she actually looks older. And I was like, so I felt like there was some... you're supposed to like Miss Henderson and not Miss Clapperton. And even though they're around the same age, the way they are with their beauty is different.
Yeah, the way they kind of, like, their values kind of show their personality a bit more. And I totally agree. That was really a really good job on characterization. But I thought it was so weird how relevant all this stuff kind of still is today, like a century more than, or almost a century later. And how there's still probably even more shame and like anxiety around like growing old.
Oh yeah.
Especially for women, or just like appearing old, even if you don't feel it, just like trying to like kind of mask your age, right?
Yeah. I'm already getting gray hairs.
Personally, I think gray hairs look awesome. I think because it's not something you're born with, right? It's something you develop. It's like, like, I got gray hair. Check me out. Woo.
I don't know if you say that once you get them. I look at my brother, who's only 2 years older than me, but he's, like, fully going gray at this point.
Oh my gosh. No, he's not. It's kind of loud in her books. Or maybe my ears are just more sensitive towards it.
Yeah.
But you can definitely see it more, like, in today's society with, like, the marketing and consumption of, like, anti-aging wrinkle cream, you know?
Yeah.
Or, like, hair dye or something. And the pressure or, like, expectation of conforming to, like, high body standards is certainly, I mean, it's not limited to cisgender women alone, but I don't want to, like, exclude or invalidate anyone's, like, personal experiences with body image, but we tend to find these sort of messages kind of geared towards women.
Yes.
All this, like, body dissatisfaction. And we can trace... It's actually pretty sad. Like, we can trace body dissatisfaction throughout a woman's whole life. From her first, like, embarrassment with pimples to maybe, like... her dissatisfaction with, I don't know, her thighs or hips or something, to, like, the horror of, like, menopausal weight gain, or, again, the wrinkles and the gray hairs. It's like, when is it gonna stop, right? So, at some point, people just need to, like, be, like, more comfortable in their body. And it's not just, you can't just say it and, like, snap your fingers and it'll appear. That's not how it goes.
Yeah, I would say the book kind of has that message with Miss Henderson having a lot of gray hair, but it's still being kind of described as very...
Yes, but another thing that I found interesting was that the girls even poked kind of fun at her age, I think.
Oh, yeah,
and I was like, yeah, that's true.
It's people.
And they don't realize that that's going to be them someday, and then they're going to feel the same pressure. And so it's kind of just... I don't know, kind of ingrained in our, like, Western society, it feels like. And I found it interesting to come across these, like, attitudes in older books, and even older books, just because they kind of allow us to, like, trace, like, the history and development of these ideals and attitudes, and they can reveal, like, the patriarchal origins, right? Because, like, the male gaze has, like, for so long, it's shaped what we perceive as beauty.
Yes.
Right? And it's kind of modeled off this ideal of, like, the delicate, dainty, domestic woman, right? Who's not a threat, who's not going to challenge, like, the patriarchal societal order. And it kind of also, like, reinforces the idea that women are, like, physically or biologically, like, inferior, right? So, like, I always found that interesting too, and how although, I mean, in Agatha Christie's books, age and looking attractive still really matter to both genders, I would say, but definitely
it's commented on more with women.
It's way more,
like, with guys, he's like, I don't know, I don't really remember, but with girls, Agatha will tell you if they are ugly or if they are attractive.
Or how they feel about their own beauty, or how they perceive others. Or with Hastings, like, him always appreciating beauty.
Yeah.
And then if someone doesn't match his standards, it's always like, oh, well, she wasn't a looker or anything. She kind of had this, I don't know, this
Although, a lot of the girls, a lot of times they're not just attractive or not. Even if they're unattractive in a specific way. Like, they're always, like, different ways. Yeah. That of how they look, which is, I guess, kind of good, because it's, like, showing that there's different kinds of attractiveness, and it's not just one or the other, kind of.
Yeah.
I think, in some of the books.
Could you give an example?
The book I just finished, there was a girl who is never really described as attractive, but the main character, the narrator, really likes her, and she's got, like, a quirky attractiveness and all this other kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then there's a woman who's always described as attractive, but, like, they say when she speaks, she's, like, not very interesting or something, or she's, like, a very specific kind of attractiveness, and so, and then the one that we actually end up with is the quirky girl, so that's kind of, I guess, in a way, is kind of nice.
Yes, because it kind of proves, like, looks aren't everything.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't put so much value on that.
And then I just started a Tommy and Tuppence book, and Tuppence is the girl, neither of them are actually described as, like, attractive, but they're attractive in a certain way, right? They're, I don't know, it's hard to describe.
Their personalities.
But I was actually kind of happy that neither of them were described as attractive.
Yeah.
There was like, he was an unattractive man, but nice and kind looking and, you know, so on. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Did we finish all of, like, the
Regatta Mystery short stories? Yes.
So, I think we should put them in order.
Yes.
And we do not have the Baghdad chest. We didn't create a
podcast episode
for that one, so you'll just have to
read it on your own. Discuss it amongst yourselves.
It was good, but it wasn't great. It was good.
Yeah.
There's nothing that special about that one either that I wanted to note on.
I think the predictability was enough of a surprise for sure. Anyway.
And the clues, I guess, were there, but the characters were okay.
Yeah. So I would say, number 1, Yellow Iris. Number 2, How Does Your Garden Grow? Number 3, The Dream. Number 4, Baghdad Chest. Number 5, Problem at Sea.
You really didn't like Problem at Sea.
It was too predictable for me. I don't know.
Oh, really?
It was just a little too linear, yes.
I have number 1, Yellow Iris. So good. Number 2, The Dream. Number 3, Problem at Sea. Number 4, Baghdad Chess. Number 5, How Does Your Garden Grow?
Jeez, the garden was a good one. It was, okay, it wasn't, it was
I was
good.
kind of boring for me.
It was funny.
This one, I enjoyed so much because everybody was just funny for some reason.
That's true.
They were talking about killing women with hatchets.
I don't find that funny.
It was, I know, I understand.
These guys are rude.
They were. It was very rude. But when you think that it's funny in a dark humor way, it worked in my brain.
Nice. I'm glad it worked. You worked it out. You let it work for you. Yeah, I don't know. It was just too obvious from the second page. It was
obvious, but it's the first book. I guessed it. I never
Okay, so you're a little bit more proud of yourself.
I am proud.
And that's kind of connected with
It was easy to guess, but it was about how rather than who, right?
Yes, that is true.
Because in How Does Your Garden Grow, you knew who it was. Kind of. Well, who else could it have been?
You knew who it wasn't, yes, but you definitely didn't know how.
Yeah, but you didn't know how in this one.
It was a little bit more obvious. You know he's a stage man, you know...
Yeah. There was lots of clues, but I was proud that I got it, so there we go. Yeah. I thought How Does Your Garden Grow was kind of boring.
I thought it was cute. I thought it was really cute.
Thank you for listening to this episode in which we discussed Problem at Sea.
Catch us next time on the Christie Club.
under the sea, where there are puppets wielding their hatchets under the sea. Do 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 do